One thing that I have always wanted is I have always wanted a national holiday where everybody takes the day off work to just appreciate the existence of Ed Harris. Now we don't need that holiday because we got Vanishing Point. Ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba-ba. Hello, my friends. Welcome to Thumb Together TV. My name is Andrew Fantasia. Today we are talking about WESTWORLD Season 2, Episode 9, Together. This is Vanishing Point. We're 1 week away from the finale, and we got a crazy episode last night. As always, if you enjoy this review/analysis, please feel free to give me a thumbs up and give some love to that subscribe button as well. And as usual, this is going to be a video full of the spoilers, so don't say I didn't warn you. Alright, so last week in Kiksuya, we stalled a bit. We held off on the main storyline and we looked back at the Ghost Nation and what they were all about, while the main characters moved tiny bits forward towards their goal. In this episode, it was a very similar thing. They're stalling again. This time we take a closer look at William and his life while the characters move tiny bits towards their goal. So we're getting to that valley beyond, but we're not there yet. That's what they call suspense, kids. The Nolans know how to build suspense. They're like Hitchcocks. Except there's two of them. Except only one of them works on the show. So they're like one Hitchcock. Vanishing Point was not my favorite episode of Season 2. It wasn't. It had a lot of weird stuff going on to it that, I don't know, things that didn't sit right with me. Now, maybe when I see the finale, they will sit right with me and I'll be like, okay, that made sense now because I've seen this play out in its entirety. But until that day comes, I have to say that Vanishing Point is not one of my favorite episodes at all. It was kind of all over the place. But it did have great moments. Like I said, this one is all about William, and it's William's story, particularly of him and his family, his wife and his daughter, and we get to see the events leading up to his wife's suicide. This is the most we've ever seen his wife, Juliet, ever on the whole show, and this is the most we've ever seen the real world on the whole show as well. As far as we know, William and his family are at this black tie function. That's the flashback that we start off on. I could be wrong, but I don't remember ever hearing once what this function was for. Is it his birthday? What are they commemorating here? Why is everybody in a tuxedo drinking champagne? I don't recall learning the answer to that. And if that's the case, if they did not tell us what that function's all about, then you know that something about that function is important. Unless it's just something frivolous that I just didn't clue into when I watched the episode. Now, Juliet, his wife, as has been established before, has a little bit of a drinking problem. So at this party, she's, knocking back the champagne and just stumbling her way through the crowd and is like, oh, I bumped into you. I'm sorry. This is just such a really fun party. What's the party for again? And William is embarrassed and their daughter is embarrassed. It's not a comfortable situation. So William saunters off to this bar off to the side to have some quiet time, and who's sitting at the bar but Robert Ford? And Robert Ford is being all creepy and sinister like he usually is, and he slides William this thing that looks like a credit card, but it's all electronic, and he's like, oh, there's some bad shit on that card about you, William. There's some video of you being mean in the park. And William's like, yeah, whatever, give me that. And he essentially tells Ford off. He's just like, you know what, screw you, Ford. I'm tired of your games, I'm tired of your lies, I'm tired of how you're always quoting Aristotle, and he walks out and leaves the bar. And Ford's like, ooh, I have one more game to play, Mr. William. Ford's dialogue is just increasingly more and more corny. I feel like when we get to season 3, he's literally going to have a mustache he's going to twiddle, and he's just constantly going to be carrying a book full of smart sounding quotes that he's just going to, all of his dialogue is just going to come from that book. That's it. They don't even have to write dialogue for him anymore. They're just going to be like, let's quote Abraham Lincoln this time. And Ford will be like, 407 years ago, Bernard. So William goes home and he has an argument with Juliet. Juliet's like, I don't have a problem. My problem is you. I hate you and everything. You don't love me. You ruined my family. And then Emily, the daughter, comes in and she's all scared because she sees her parents acting in a weird way. And she tells the mom, you know what, maybe we should put you back into rehab. But it didn't work the first time, but I think it's time to go back. And she's like, no, I don't need to. I'm fine. I'm fine. And William puts his wife to bed, and she asks him to just be honest with her for once in their whole marriage. As he tucks her in, she's presumably passed out. He takes this metal credit card with this incriminating stuff on it and kind of hides it in a book. And then he starts this monologue where he's telling his wife about how there's darkness inside of him. And at first he thought it was something that had appeared on him and that he was turning into something terrible. But then he made the analogy, he's like, no, it was more like, I discovered it was more like I was shedding my skin, and the darkness was what was underneath, and it's been a part of me all along. He has sort of resigned completely to the fact that he is an evil person. That seems to be the gist with William. And we got a lot of beautiful little flashbacks to the young William, played by Jimmy Simpson, and his time in the park. That, for me, was emotionally the coolest part of this episode, because the more of a person's life you can see in a story, the more span of life that you can cover, the more emotionally charged the ending of that life is going to be for you, the viewer. And to see a lot of young William and what he was like, and where he is now, where he's this just haggard old man who's just like, yep, I'm evil and I have a bad home life. That's the breaks. It really plays with your mind, and it tugs at your heartstrings, but not in a sentimental way, just in a like, oh, what a shame. Like this guy, went from this to this. Here we are looking back on his life and what he's accomplished. And he's accomplished a lot, but not a whole lot of it is great. Hindsight's always 20/20. So to look at a life with 20/20 vision, you get a much more crystal clear image of that life. So he finishes his monologue and he walks away, presumably to cry somewhere. And his wife immediately opens her eyes. I think she was faking it. I think she was faking the drunkenness, because she opened her eyes pretty abruptly. So I think that's what that was supposed to signify. She rushes over to the books where he hid the thing. Apparently she either heard him do it or she saw him do it. I don't know. But she rushes over and she grabs the credit card. She goes and she puts it on one of those magic folding tablets, and it automatically starts showing her visuals and video of William in the park being a bad person. And upon seeing these videos, she presumably immediately, gets into the bathtub, overdoses on pills, and dies. And William and Emily are downstairs talking about sending her back to rehab. They see the drips coming through the ceiling. They run upstairs, and she's gone. That doesn't sit right with me. There's something missing there. And what's funny is, throughout the episode, Emily, who has, pulled her father out of Ghost Nation in the present time, she's asking him about the suicide too. She's saying something doesn't sit right. It feels like there's a missing piece of the puzzle. Why would she kill herself that night? What really happened? And these flashbacks are William's way of telling her what really happened. But even when we get that full story from William, it doesn't add up, does it? Here's a credit card. I'm going to watch my husband do some bad shit on it that I'm pretty sure I already knew he was doing. Our marriage is already ruined from the looks of things. And okay, I'll just go ahead and overdose now. At least as far as I'm concerned, there's something missing between her watching that video and her getting in the bathtub. I hope. Because if that's really all it was, if it's just like, oh, there's my husband being a jerk, time to pop pills, baby, that's kind of weak. It's kind of a weak suicide, I'm sorry. The conversation William has with Emily in the park is very interesting, because they're talking about the whole Delos plan and how they're recording all their guests, and he spills the beans to her. He tells her that, and she asks him how on earth they could scan a guest's mind and figure out all this stuff. And he drops a big revelation where he points to his cowboy hat and he says, it's all built in. And she takes a look at her hat. And that's a big moment of truth. And we realize, wow, okay, the cowboy hats had some kind of neural scanner in them. So the whole time the guests are walking around with their hats and their brains are getting scanned. That is a really fun revelation, but now that kind of spoils the illusion for me a bit, because as soon as I heard that, I thought, okay, there's at least 6 parks that we know of. One of them is WESTWORLD, and the other ones that we know of are Shogun World and the Raj. As far as I remember, in Shogun World and the Raj, guests don't wear hats, do they? I could be wrong. Maybe in the Raj they have to put on like a pith helmet or something, but I didn't see anybody guest-wise wearing those. If you're in another park besides WESTWORLD, how do they scan your brain? Do they put it in just something else, a different article of clothing? How does that work? Then things take a really tragic turn when William suddenly decides that Emily is not really Emily, that she is a host that Ford made to get into his brain and keep him from finding the door. And William is now 100% convinced that this woman he's been talking to is not his real daughter, but a host of his daughter. And he's like, fuck you, I don't care about you, blah, blah, blah. And he walks away and she's like, Dad, what the hell is the matter with you? And that's when a team of humans shows up, an extraction team, and they're like, hey, what's going on here? And they recognize William right away, and they're like, oh, damn, that's the boss. Quick, everybody look busy. And they rush up to William and Emily. They have this little scanner thing, and they scan the back of William's neck. We see that it says something like approved or something like that. And then they rush over and proceed to do the same thing to Emily, but we don't see the result of Emily's test. I'm assuming they're testing to see whether they are a host or a human. But here's the thing. The episode really started playing with the whole idea of, is one of these two characters a host? And when William's thing got scanned, it didn't say human or host. It just said like accepted or confirmed or something vague. And again, we didn't see that result. And William is so convinced that Emily is a host that he shoots all these guards, and then he shoots her. And he's like, you couldn't know about the credit card thing? You could know about that. I never told anybody. And then as he's like standing over her body, ready to like cut her arm and prove that she's a host, he sees that she's holding the credit card. So now there is a very good chance that she was in fact a human after all. And he just straight up murdered his daughter. This was weird, man. This was weird even for Westworld. And then he stumbles out of the woods, and he's out on this plateau, and he can't believe what he has just done. As far as he's concerned, he killed his little girl, and he's thinking about her and stuff. He gets down on his knees, and he's about to shoot himself, and then he stops. And he's like, maybe it's me. And he starts cutting into himself to see if it's him who's really a host. And we don't see the results of that either. They cut to black before we can see what he finds in that arm. I don't know if I love the whole idea of, is William really a host the whole time? Because we kind of already played that card with Bernard. I mean, when you have a show with this premise, from episode 1, minute 1, you're already thinking of that. You're already thinking like, okay, which of these humans doesn't know that they're actually a robot? You can put Vegas odds down on that happening. And it did happen with Bernard. And it was a cool twist. And I was like, this is neat. I like this. Let's see where this goes. For them to pull the same trick again with William, I don't know. It just feels like they're just doing the same thing over again. I don't know if I would like that. So I hope William is human. As far as Emily is concerned, I don't know if I want her to be dead because I like her and I feel like she had a lot more to bring to the table. But if she was a host, then that raises a whole bunch of other questions. I think I would prefer, if one of them has to be a host in that situation, I think I would prefer it being her. But she did have the credit card, which we saw that her mom saved. So I don't know, this really messes with my head. I think my biggest question to walk away from this is there more to the suicide story? I feel like there has to be. And my second biggest question is, were there any hosts in that scene between William and his daughter? Then we get what might be the most interesting and scary moment of the episode, where we see that the Delos extraction team has been playing around with Maeve, and they've discovered Maeve's powers and, what she can do with her brain and all that stuff. And Charlotte Hale has told the scientist, hey, figure out what this power is and let's see what we can do with it. And he takes that power and he somehow manages to, again, he said some kind of like technician speak, and I don't speak computer, so I don't know what the hell he was talking about, but the gist of it was he found a way to copy Maeve's power or transfer Maeve's power into Clementine. And now Clementine is under the control of Charlotte. He demonstrated, and Clementine walked up to a piece of glass and she put her hand on it, and she controlled the hosts on the other side of the glass and made them just rip each other apart in this frenzy of Walking Dead-esque proportions that was very disturbing to watch. And Charlotte's like, great, now we have that weapon. Now we can control the hosts with Clementine. And in the meantime, Maeve is being visited by the consciousness of Robert Ford, who tells her, oh, you were always my favorite. I don't buy that for a second either. And he's giving her this little pep talk, and he's like, you have so much more to do. Come on, pull yourself off that table. And she starts to mentally do something to the little tablet there, and she's altering her configurations again. So here's what I think is going to happen. Here's what I hope is going to happen. Maeve gets up, she gets better, she's got her powers back. Clementine also has her powers and is working for Charlotte. We're going to see some kind of Jedi mind battle between Maeve and Clementine. And it's going to be all these hosts versus all these hosts, but one is controlled by a host and one is controlled by a host controlled by a human. And it's going to be this cool battle royale, and Charlotte is going to use Clementine as this ultimate weapon to wipe out all the hosts, and it's going to be cray-cray. That's what I'm hoping to see in this finale. And we know there's a lot of dead bodies in that valley beyond. After that flood, some shit goes down, so I would not be surprised if that was the case. Speaking of dead bodies, though, the final scene of this episode involved Teddy and Dolores. Now, at the beginning of the episode, they have a little altercation with Ghost Nation. A fight breaks out. Teddy and Dolores are the last ones standing in the fight, but Dolores tells Teddy, look for any stragglers, make sure they don't get away. And Teddy runs around, and he's looking, and he finds a straggler. He finds that second-in-command Ghost Nation guy. He does not kill him. Got him in his sights, and he's like, no. And Ghost Nation guy gets away. And that's when Teddy kind of has a little moment of clarity, and he looks at himself and he realizes that all these monstrous things he's been doing have been Dolores' fault, because she forced him, she changed him against his will, and that really upset him. So we end the episode off with him looking out over Westworld, and he says the line about natural splendor, which was a nice sweet callback. And for the first time, I think all season, really, we really get a glimpse of Dolores being happy and being in love with Teddy, because she still considers herself to be in love with Teddy despite all this crazy stuff she's doing. She's the Deathbringer now. And, you know, she kind of holds Teddy and she's like, I love you too, and we're going to be together soon. And Teddy's like, you know what? I loved you once, but you did this crazy stuff to me and now I can't be a part of this anymore. And he takes his pistol and it looks like he's going to shoot her. And she's like, what are you doing? Don't you dare. And he's like, no, I'm never going to hurt you. I promised I would keep you safe till the day I die, and I stick by that. And he shoots himself. And Dolores is like sitting over his body, screaming, and now she has nothing left, and she's alone. Since we don't have the cradle, there are no backups. I'm assuming this means this is, in fact, the death of Teddy for good. You can bet your sweet ass we're seeing James Marsden again, because we know he's got to end up in the valley. He's got to end up floating around in that flooded lake there. And if this whole thing with switched control units goes on and Bernard ends up taking over Teddy's body, which is looking less and less likely now, but who knows, anything can still be on the table, then yeah, James Marsden can still get up and walk around and be James Marsden, except not Teddy. Guys, we lost Teddy. He's gone. And that's kind of a sad thing, because that is sort of the death of innocence. Innocence died in Westworld today, and we have Dolores' actions kind of to thank for that. Now let's hope that this sort of sparks some kind of redemption in Dolores. Let's hope that this woman takes a look at what she has done and reflects on what she has become and thinks, you know what, I don't want to be this person anymore. I want to be this person. And I have the right now to choose to be that person because I am free, I'm awake. And when she has that realization, it's going to be a big heroic moment for her, and we're all going to love it. But it still begs the question now, how does Teddy's body get in that reservoir? We also don't know what Bernard is going to be up to, because last time we saw him, he managed to somehow reprogram himself so that he could wipe the Ford traces from his mind, and Ford's apparently gone now, and he drove away and left Elsie in the dust, and he's just like, I gotta leave, I gotta take care of stuff, you stay here, take this tracker, somebody's gonna come and extract you and you'll be safe. And Elsie's like, what the hell, man, come on, what's going on? That poor woman, she has no say in the matter, she's just being strung along by all this chaos that has happened since she's been locked up in a cave for God knows how long. We have one episode left, so the Valley Beyond is really going to encompass this whole finale, I feel. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's another extended episode like Riddle of the Sphinx was. But overall, Vanishing Point really felt just kind of like awkward, and it raised questions, not in the sense of like a Westworld, like, ooh, here's a new question, but in the sense of, I don't think that really makes sense from where I'm standing. The suicide and everything, the whole, is my daughter a host, am I a host? And again, when I see the finale, maybe it'll make more sense. But right now, as it stands, it's a little bit clunky. So we just have to wait and see one more week, one more episode. Season 2 is almost over. I have a feeling that whatever happens next week is going to have our heads spinning for the next year, or however long it takes for season 3 to come out, because HBO likes to take their sweet ass time. But that has been Vanishing Points. That's Dumped Together TV. I'm Andrew Fantasia. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. I'll see you here one last time next week. Until then, these violent delights have violent ends.